Hello, I'm Gary Lyon and welcome to Access All Areas. Some fantastic football played, particularly on Saturday night. But unfortunately, Damo, the footy world's talking about Alistair Clarkson's altercation with a fan.
It is talking about it and will be for some time until the AFL and the police in South Australia come down with official findings, guys. But for those who haven't seen it, let's just revisit it now.
Clarko, how's the win, mate? How's the win today, brother? Hey, that power! Clarko!
Righto, well, where does it sit right now, Damo? Do we think the AFL, Mark Evans, not going to take any further action on this from their point of view?
It seems that way, and the extreme provocation, which is clearly evident here and also evident when you speak to people who saw the incident. There were several people from Hawthorn who saw it. Where does it sit with you, though, guys? Just from a health and safety perspective, well, when it comes to a coach?
A couple of things. Hawthorn Footy Club are the best-run footy club and have been historically for a number of years, get things right all the time. I feel they've failed in this instance and failed badly. I know Clarko well, and these are the circumstances surrounding what happened. They go to Adelaide, they lose a game. He's a competitive animal, wouldn't sit well with him. It's Anzac Day, it's been a long day of celebration, and whoever thought it was a good idea for Alistair Clarkson to walk back to his room from that ground at that time of the night, I could have almost told you what was going to happen. So in this instance, one of the very few occasions they've failed Alistair Clarkson, and I know they'll turn around and say, well, Clarko wanted to walk. Well, sometimes you say, Clarko, you can't. And it's one of the few areas that I've got experience in this thing. I would never do that. I mean, we cop that stuff every single day, and that's the recipe. And they'll say, oh, why can't coaches walk? Well, it's a fact of life. Your mates, all the social media animals who walk around with phones now want their 3 minutes of fame. It makes for a recipe that's going to set off a tinderbox like it did there, and it was always going to happen.
Look, we know and we've accepted, we've reported it as being extremely provoked. So let's get that on the table and state that as fact.
And it is. As I said, I've experienced it. I know what it's like.
But is there a requirement, as I believe there was for Alistair yesterday, to offer and I say this, conditional apology for doing what he did? I say that because there are so many campaigns that, not just the AFL, but his own club and other clubs fully back, the Step Back and Think campaign. What if the guy did slip at the same time he threw the round arm and fell over and knocked himself out? I mean, we would be dealing with this on a whole new plane if that was the case. And while I got no real drum with what he said yesterday, there was an acknowledgement of it. I just reckon a conditional apology around the events might have put a total line on it, because I don't think there is one just yet.
Around the events, I don't think he was ever going to apologise to the guy.
No, but it's he apologised for the message that's been lost.
Perhaps, yeah. That might be a reasonable point. Yeah. But anyway, we live and learn. That won't happen again.
We do.
Take nothing away from what was an unbelievable game, an unbelievable night of footy, to be honest. There were two games going on simultaneously, probably the four teams who are going to contend most seriously. And Port Adelaide blew Hawthorn out of the blocks, out of the water in a way that it defied belief. You were watching it. This took you back to the final against Richmond.
Yep.
They were powerless to stop this, Hawthorn. They couldn't stop. It was all about clearances. It was all centre clearances around the ground clearances. And Hawthorn, with Mitchell, Hodge, Lewis, great clearance players in their own right, they were, well, in this instance, in the first quarter, witches' hats.
And no Gray and no Wines in this story unfolding. Guys, the two games that the Hawks have now lost, you mentioned there that they've lost clearances in this game against Port Adelaide. Do we line that last quarter up against Essendon with what you saw in the first quarter of this game? Is there an issue for them and where they are vulnerable?
I don't think they've been a big clearance team anyway, historically, even in their premiership winning years, Damo. So I don't think that's going to worry them too much, unless it becomes a real pattern. They were losing clearances and winning games, and so they weren't worrying about it. They lose clearances and lose games, then it'll become a little bit of an issue.
All summer, you were telling me how good this man was going to be all season, Jake Stringer, and you've been proven right, guys.
I know, but people say you're making that up. But I was hearing stuff out of the kennel camp that the Western Bulldogs staff would stop work and go out and just watch him train. Such was his form. He's one of those players, Damo, who enjoys being the centre of attention. I say that in a good way. Because the great players want the ball to come to them and they want to be the men to kick the goals. I'm not sure Hardigan's going to enjoy watching all these sorts of things, but he's mid-size, he's a hard match-up, and he was one of a dozen or more Western Bulldogs players who just gave Doggies, if you're not a member of the Doggies and you support from, jump on board right now. They were great, and the other mob, the Adelaide Crows, just might have been drinking their own bathwater.
Do you think it was as simple as that?
No question about that.
3 wins going in and then getting belted?
Yeah, because there was no ferocity around the footy, there's no intensity, and that's not taking anything away from the Western Bulldogs. But
so you're putting an asterisk on that performance, prepared to let them off?
I always say, let's see how they respond, but maybe Phil Walsh might have liked a bit of Bernie Vince-style aggression at the footy.
Well, he can't have that.
No,
he's on record as saying you don't do
exactly.
that.
But no, we'll see how they bounce back. 47 uncontested possessions, and then you lose the tackle count. Maybe leads you to do this stuff. What's going on with that bloke Archie in the background?
It's a highlighter he's got in his hand there, Gaz, and forgot that the cap wasn't on it.
Have a look at him.
And didn't like the taste of it.
No cap on the highlighter. I guess when you're 10 goals up with a minute and a bit to go, Damo, your mind can wander a little bit.
Well, Beveridge's mind wasn't wandering. He was very focused.
Hey, what a start for that man's coaching career.
I love this guy from Fremantle Doctors, Gaz, Luke McFarlane. Injury has got him at various stages of key points of seasons, but right now, you could argue that he's at the top of his game.
Well, it's a great story because people talk about the window passing for Fremantle, which Rossi Lyon will never buy into, but when you've got someone like Luke McFarlane who knows that every game might be his last, that he's coming towards the end of a really celebrated career and he hasn't yet got the premiership, then he can drive standards. It becomes really desperate for them. Not so much for Lachie Neale and these blokes who start, but when you've got him driving it, that's a great thing. And that form on the weekend suggests that he's going to be a really important part of what they're doing.
You always stand by your convictions.
Yes.
You do. But let's have a look at an incident from that game when it comes to the goal umpiring decision made in it. Someone probably doesn't stand by those convictions.
Still. Here now.
I believe it's a goal. I'd just like to check for a touch.
No worries.
Coming out.
Just go up, Davis, just go up.
I see it touched the force across the line. Okay.
Just go up. Just go up, Daggers.
I believe it's touched. Just like checking
Damo, straight upstairs to see Mark Evans. Your first visit for the year. And that young man there, we all make mistakes. He's heading off to Wangaratta to do the Rovers.
You've highlighted the boundary umpire here.
Well, how can the boundary see?
Well, he said it was touched.
Well, the goal umpire said, I believe it's a goal, strongly. Then the boundary umpire who's behind 3 posts and the goal umpire says, I believe it's touched. So the goal umpire said, I believe it's touched.
So I'm up. It's taken around 4. That's not a bad
You're
effort.
up and he's off to the bush.
Okay.
Speaking of strength of conviction, Sam Reid we were critical of last week on the show, wondering where he fitted into this side. Gave a pretty good response. 11 marks, 22 touches.
Different role. We were speculating last week, was he a forward or was he a back? Well, maybe he's neither. Maybe he is what he was on the weekend.
Yeah, well, he spent some time in the wing, floating back, getting behind the footy. We were critical of ball use last week, most specifically, and he, as I said, 11 marks, 22 touches, but ball retention is such a buzzword these days, and he's played a very good role from that point of view. So if you can keep that up, then the Sydney Swans are going to be better for it, obviously.
You're big on sample size. We've now got 4 games of a sample for Collingwood. Do we need to reassess where we both thought they were going to be this year?
I had them just out of the 8, I think, and no, I'm not reassessing. 2 of those wins were against Brisbane and St Kilda. But the win on the weekend was of real substance. And if they can the thing about coaching, Damo, is getting buy-in from your team. Yep. What they said clearly and what they want to play is don't worry about individual defence. It is go to the most dangerous and go without hesitation. And this is what happens here. Look, one peels off and then the next bloke peels off and then the next bloke. And what that does, it builds trust amongst each other and trust amongst the coaching staff. Because they say, you play this way, we'll get results. So they go, all right, let's do it. They went and did it faultlessly.
Are you underselling, though, what they did on the weekend against Essendon, a quality opponent?
Like I said, they did it faultlessly. And
but you're also not changing your views on where you think they might go. I mean, I don't see you can have it both ways.
It's a fine line between 9th and 8th, Damo. So
you're not thinking they're 6 or 5th?
No, I'm full of admiration for them. Absolutely full of admiration. But I'm just going to wait and see when they come across some of those better sides. But it was a great win. Hey, I love this. Carlton, they've got a big game coming up against Collingwood, mixed record breaker. Patrick Cripps, play him, Menzel injured, but play Dylan Buckley, play all those blokes because this is your future. And this kid here...
You like him?
33 touches, contested ball animal. I think he's got more than that, though. I think he's got real deft hands, real good decision maker. He can go forward. He's deceptive. He's the Mundy size. He's about 6'2", 6'3".
I got the feeling you think he could become as good as Mundy. if not better?
I'm a massive fan, and I don't think he's had any great continuity in the way he's been able to train and prepare and even string games together, because he's had a lot of injuries, backs included. So I'm a big, big fan. Not a, what about the crowd? Are you a big fan of that crowd in New Zealand? Because 12,000 people went.
Well, I would have been a fan of it if there actually were 12,000 people there. There weren't 12,000 people there. I know that was the official figure given.
I beg your pardon.
That 12,000 figure would have been a good figure to work with, but there
Are
weren't
you saying
12,000.
that they were faulty numbers?
I've spoken to people who were there.
What, they counted them?
Well, they reckon they bolstered that figure up by a fair bit.
When
and it's not enough. It's not the crowd that have turned up. The experiment is over, Gary.
12,000
New Zealand has to be aborted.
In an environment of rugby league crowds, this is sort of the environment you're talking about, where 6,000's a good crowd.
Yep.
12,000.
Where's it taking football? Where is football being played in Wellington on Anzac Day taking the game of football when it's all said and done?
I don't know.
It's done. It's finished. Just
abort
it.
You sort that out when you're upstairs. Hey, Queensland teams, by the way, it's like the under-16 carnivals we used to play. When you played Queensland teams, they didn't really look like they knew what they were doing, and that's where they're at the moment. And they're going to be a story. We'll talk about them more later.
The Suns are a bigger worry than the Brisbane Lions.
No, I'm not sure then. You watched Brisbane play.
You're getting happy. You're getting happy. This guy's getting happy too. He's a Melbourne supporter.
No, it's not.
You're getting a quiet confidence about you, but...
That's not what we want to see.
Well, not the MCC members. You could probably do it had he moved a few bays to his left or right.
Not ever do we want to see that.
But you are excited, aren't you? You've got good reason to be with this man.
No, I'm not excited, Dave.
You are. I know you well.
Small sample size. No, well, how could you not be excited?
Look at this, Mark.
Yeah.
That's the best defender in the comp.
I know.
He's taken that over, Gaz.
And went back and slotted this one, which I thought was even better, and just iced the game. But he was only one of lots of things to get excited about from a Melbourne point of view on Friday night.
Gary, the lid's off.
No,
off Hogan and Melbourne.
No, it's not, Damien, because you'll jam it back on one of the harshest critics of Melbourne. Stop copying my dress sense too. You've gone with a denim, double denim you've gone with, which is ordinary. Thank you. Thanks for watching Access All Areas. We'll see you next Monday. And goodbye.